Something that's always fascinated me, and I wonder if people here have thought about it. Have you thought about, in retrospect, we look at bad things that have happened in history. We look at slavery, or we look at the rise of fascism in Europe. And in retrospect, we say, how could they have done that? And we like to think, I think, that we would have been on the right side. And I think that in this issue today, of which there is great division as to how much we should do and how fast, that the more I think about it, unless this has touched your heart, you probably would have been in those other situations on the wrong side. And that history's lessons are lost unless we apply those lessons to what's going on right now. I love to tell the story of the Good Samaritan and how it relates to all of this. Everybody here from a church? Yes, you're all in church, right? So half the time I'm talking to groups that are not Christian, by the way. And so I go to great lengths to set the story up. So I'll condense it just a little. But I want you to think about it because it is the most known parable, and I think also the most significant parable in the Bible. Christ is asked, what do I have to do to get to heaven? And I would say that heaven is a place we want to end up, right? And Christ answers that you have to do two things. We don't have any mathematicians in this audience. You have to love the Lord with all your heart and mind and strength and soul, and your neighbor as yourself. And then he's asked, well, who is my neighbor? And he tells this most magnificent parable that's ever been told. There was a certain man going from Jerusalem to Jericho when he fell among thieves. And they robbed him, and they stripped him, and they took his iPod, his cell phone, his backpack.
Stole his identity.
Identity theft, exactly. And they left him on the side of the road, half alive. And that's an important thing that Christ has just included, because he said he's alive. He's moaning, which means there's no barrier between someone passing by and helping him. Because if he was dead, or you could maybe think that he was dead, then you might have the excuse that if I touch him, I'm going to have to go through ritual cleansing, and it's going to be a hassle. So he set this story up so that you have to help this person, if he's your neighbor. And along comes a church worker, a minister, a rabbi, and he goes by and he doesn't help. And along comes another person from the church, Levite, and he goes by and he doesn't help. Why two people that fail? Christ is the master storyteller, and he is economical with his words and his illustrations, so there's nothing here by accident. Well, if you go back and you read carefully, they do two different things. The first person just breezes on by. And I think that's the person who doesn't even see that the Nazis are coming to power, or that there's slavery, or that any number of things that in retrospect we know now were wrong. They don't even see it. And the second person, if you read your Bible carefully, does something different. He crosses the road. And what that stands for is Christ is showing a continuum of how we can react to a need. The second person, I would submit to you, is where most of us are. We cross the road and we say, wow, this is terrible. I got to raise awareness. I got to get back to town. We need to lobby the Romans for street lights here and more police, and I'm sensitive to this issue, and off he goes. But it doesn't do the person in need any good. And along comes the Samaritan, and the Samaritan is riding on his donkey. Why does Christ put the Samaritan on the donkey? What's he illustrating? Two different socioeconomic classes here. The Samaritan is wealthy. I assure you that in a dangerous road, you would rather ride than walk. And if you had the money, you rode. And so he's illustrating two different socioeconomic classes here. And so he comes along and he gets off the donkey and he binds the wounds. And it's dangerous down there on the ground, by the way. Where are the muggers? You know, he could have his identity lifted too. And so he's gone out of his way, and it's been expensive, and it's dangerous, and now he's got to walk, and the other person's up on the donkey, and he takes him to the equivalent of a hospital, and he pays the bill. How many of us have ever picked somebody up, taken him to the hospital, and said, I'll pay the bill? This is the true neighbor. And what the point that Christ is trying to illustrate here is that if we want to act in compassion, we have to do like the Samaritan. We're going to have to get off our ass and do something. And I would submit to you that for most people in the world who have lived long enough and seen a change in the climate and seen the increase in suffering of the 1 billion people around the planet who live around that equator, mostly within 10 degrees latitude either side, who cannot afford air conditioning, who are facing not just warmer weather in the summer, but the loss of their country, like in Bangladesh, that this is a very real issue, and that they are in a way helpless because we're the Samaritan, we're the people with the resources that can help out, and that we should.